"Do not approve that report." The words were quiet, but they carried enough weight to make one of the most powerful men in America pause for a moment. Inside the private dining room of the Sterling Grand Hotel in Manhattan, everyone was focused on the billionaire CEO standing at the center of the room. Ethan Caldwell was seconds away from approving a decision that could shape the future of his entire empire. Investors were watching. Executives were waiting. Advisors believed everything had been carefully prepared. But the person who noticed the problem was not sitting at the executive table. She was standing beside it. Olivia Parker, a 29-year-old black waitress wearing a white shirt and black apron, held a tray in her hands as she looked toward the documents on the table. To everyone around her, she was simply part of the background. Someone who served coffee, arranged meals, and quietly moved through a room filled with people who controlled billions of dollars. She was not expected to understand corporate decisions. She was not expected to question a billionaire CEO. But Olivia had noticed something that no one else had. Ethan Caldwell had built Caldwell Global Holdings through confidence and precision. Over the years, he became known as a leader who could recognize opportunities before anyone else. His company expanded across industries. His decisions influenced markets, and his name became associated with success. He believed preparation created certainty. He believed experience created wisdom. And most importantly, he believed the people around him were the best in the world at what they did. That night, he was surrounded by financial experts, legal advisors, and executives who had spent months preparing a major expansion plan. The numbers looked impressive. The future looked promising. Everything appeared ready. Until Olivia looked closer. She had not planned to interfere. She knew the risks of speaking up in a room like this. She understood how people saw her. A waitress was not supposed to have an opinion about billion-dollar decisions. A waitress was not supposed to notice patterns hidden inside financial reports. But Olivia had always paid attention to details. It was something she had learned long before she ever wore an apron. As Ethan reached for the final document, Olivia stepped forward. The room became quiet. Several executives looked surprised. One of them exchanged a glance with another, as if wondering why a restaurant employee was interrupting such an important moment. Ethan looked at her with confusion. "Yes?" he asked. Olivia remained calm. She did not sound angry. She did not try to prove anything. She simply said, "I think you should look at that section one more time before you approve it." For a few seconds, nobody moved. Ethan looked at the document, then back at Olivia. The billionaire CEO had spent his entire career listening to people with impressive titles. He had built his empire by trusting experts. But now, the person asking him to stop was someone most people in the room had never considered important. Ethan gave a small smile, believing she had misunderstood something. "I appreciate your concern," he said politely, "but this has been reviewed by my team." Olivia nodded. She expected that answer. She knew people often trusted a position before they trusted a person. But she also knew what she had seen. A small detail. A pattern that did not make sense. A warning hidden where others were not looking. And as Ethan prepared to continue, nobody in that room understood that the quiet waitress standing nearby had just noticed the first sign of a problem that could change everything. Long before Olivia Parker stood inside a room filled with executives and billion-dollar decisions, she had already learned something important about the world. People often noticed what someone did before they noticed what someone could do. Every morning, Olivia walked into Sterling Grand Hotel wearing the same white shirt and black apron, preparing herself for another day of serving guests who rarely knew her story. To them, she was a waitress. Someone who carried plates, answered requests, and moved quietly through expensive rooms where important conversations happened. But Olivia was never just watching tables. She was watching people. She was watching details. She was watching patterns. That habit had started years earlier, long before she worked at the hotel. Olivia had once been a student studying business analytics, a field where small details could reveal much bigger truths. She enjoyed looking at information that others ignored. Numbers were not just numbers to her. They represented decisions, risks, and consequences. Her professors noticed something unusual about her. Olivia had the ability to connect information quickly and recognize when something did not make sense. She did not just memorize facts. She understood the story behind them. But life changed the direction she expected to follow. When her family needed support, Olivia made a choice that many people would never see. She stepped away from her studies and focused on helping the people she loved. She did not complain about the path she lost. She did not tell everyone about the opportunities she had left behind. She simply adjusted and continued moving forward. The skills remained with her. The curiosity remained with her. The way she observed the world never disappeared. At Sterling Grand Hotel, Olivia became known as someone who noticed everything. She remembered small details about guests. She recognized when something was wrong before others noticed. She solved problems quietly without needing recognition. Most people saw these actions as part of being a good waitress. They never realized they were seeing the same abilities that once made her a talented analyst. Meanwhile, Ethan Caldwell lived in a completely different world. His days were filled with private meetings, investment decisions, and conversations about companies worth billions of dollars. He built Caldwell Global Holdings by surrounding himself with successful people and trusting proven systems. His office was filled with financial reports, market predictions, and advisors who had spent years studying business trends. Ethan believed preparation created confidence. He believed experience separated leaders from everyone else. And for most of his career, that belief had worked. But success had also created a weakness he did not recognize. He had become comfortable listening to people who looked like experts, people with impressive titles, people who sat at the table. That was why Olivia's warning felt so unexpected. She did not have a corporate position. She did not have a luxury office. She did not have a name that opened doors. Yet she had noticed something that everyone else missed. As the evening continued after her warning, Olivia returned to her duties. She did not expect Ethan to listen. She had seen that reaction many times before. People often valued information differently, depending on who delivered it. But Olivia knew what she had seen. And deep inside, she understood that the problem was not whether she had the right to speak. The real question was whether anyone would be willing to listen. For Ethan Caldwell, success had always been built on one simple belief. The person making the final decision needed to have the clearest understanding of the situation. That belief had guided him from the beginning of his career. He started with a small company, took calculated risks, and eventually transformed Caldwell Global Holdings into a powerful business empire. His name became connected with innovation, growth, and confidence. People respected his ability to make difficult choices when others hesitated. Inside boardrooms, his opinions carried weight because he had spent decades proving himself. But there was something Ethan did not realize. The same confidence that helped him build his empire was also making it harder for him to recognize a warning when it came from an unexpected place. The evening at Sterling Grand Hotel was supposed to represent another major achievement. The expansion plan had been prepared for months. Financial teams reviewed the projections. Legal advisors examined the agreements. Senior executives discussed the possible future of the company. Everyone around Ethan believed the decision was clear. The opportunity was too valuable to ignore. But while everyone focused on the size of the opportunity, nobody was looking closely enough at the details. Ethan trusted his team because they had earned his trust. They had helped him make successful decisions before. In his mind, experience mattered. Expertise mattered. A person's position mattered. That was why Olivia Parker's warning seemed impossible to accept. She was not part of the executive team. She was not one of the analysts who spent months reviewing the documents. She was a waitress who happened to notice something unusual while serving dinner. To Ethan, the situation felt simple. He believed she had seen only a small piece of a much larger picture. He believed his team had already examined everything. What he did not understand was that Olivia was not looking at the deal from the same perspective as everyone else. She was not trying to predict the future or challenge authority. She was simply noticing what was directly in front of her. After the dinner ended, Ethan returned to his office and continued preparing for the next steps. The conversation with Olivia stayed in his mind, but he tried to dismiss it. Successful leaders could not question every concern they heard. They needed to make decisions. They needed to move forward. At least, that was what he believed. The next morning, Ethan reviewed updates from his team. The reports appeared normal. The projections still looked positive. The confidence around the acquisition remained strong. But something felt different. A small doubt had been created. It was not because Olivia had demanded attention. It was because she had spoken with a calm certainty that stayed with him. She had not acted like someone trying to prove a point. She acted like someone who felt responsible for sharing what she noticed. Meanwhile, Olivia returned to Sterling Grand Hotel and continued her normal routine. She did not know whether Ethan would check the information. She did not know whether anyone believed her. She simply returned to her work, carrying the same quiet determination she had always carried. But inside the world of Caldwell Global Holdings, the question Olivia raised had started to grow. Because sometimes the most dangerous mistakes are not caused by a lack of information. They happen when people believe they already know everything they need to know. The first signs of trouble did not arrive with a dramatic announcement. They appeared quietly, hidden inside reports, numbers, and decisions that most people believed were already understood. At Caldwell Global Holdings, the confidence surrounding the expansion plan remained strong. Executives continued preparing for the next stage of growth. Investors expected another successful move from Ethan Caldwell. The billionaire CEO had built his reputation by staying calm under pressure and making decisions when others were uncertain. But now, a small question had entered the picture. The warning from Olivia Parker. Ethan tried to focus on the facts. He reviewed the information again, looking for something that could explain why a waitress had been so certain. At first, nothing stood out. The reports appeared professional. The projections looked promising. The presentations were filled with positive expectations. Everything suggested that the company was moving in the right direction. But the more Ethan studied the details, the more he noticed small inconsistencies. They were not obvious mistakes. They were small differences between the expectations presented and the information behind them. A number that seemed slightly unusual. A projection that depended on a very specific assumption. A detail that did not completely match the larger picture. These were the same types of details Olivia had learned to notice years earlier. Meanwhile, Victor Reynolds, the CEO of the company involved in the expansion agreement, continued assuring everyone that the plan was solid. He had built his own reputation as a successful businessman and knew exactly how to present confidence. Every major opportunity comes with questions, Victor said during a private discussion. But waiting too long can cause companies to miss their greatest moments. His words sounded reasonable. They sounded like the advice of an experienced leader. But Ethan was no longer listening the same way he had before. For the first time, he was not only asking whether the deal could succeed. He was asking what information might have been overlooked. That change in thinking was uncomfortable because it challenged the very approach that had made him successful. At Caldwell Global Holdings, some executives noticed Ethan's hesitation. They wondered why he was suddenly reviewing details that had already been approved by multiple teams. They did not understand that one quiet conversation had changed his perspective. Olivia had not given him all the answers. She had given him a reason to ask better questions. Later that afternoon, Ethan returned to Sterling Grand Hotel. He wanted to speak with Olivia directly. When he found her preparing tables, she looked surprised to see him. She expected another guest, not the CEO whose decision had been questioned because of her words. "I want to understand what you saw," Ethan said. Olivia looked at him for a moment before answering. She was careful with her words. "I did not know everything about the deal," she explained. "I just noticed that one part did not fit with the rest." Ethan listened carefully. That sentence stayed with him. Olivia was not claiming to be smarter than everyone else. She was not trying to take credit. She was simply explaining the difference between looking at information and truly paying attention to it. As Ethan left the hotel that evening, he realized something important. The problem was not that his team lacked knowledge. The problem was that everyone had been looking in the same direction. Olivia had looked somewhere else. And sometimes, one different perspective is enough to reveal what an entire room of experts failed to see. The conversation between Ethan Caldwell and Olivia Parker stayed with him long after he left Sterling Grand Hotel. For the first time in years, the billionaire CEO found himself thinking less about the opportunity in front of him and more about the person who had questioned it. Olivia had not walked into his world with confidence because she wanted recognition. She had walked into it because she noticed something that mattered. That difference changed the way Ethan viewed the situation. The following morning, Ethan called a private meeting with his senior financial team. The atmosphere was different from the usual discussions inside Caldwell Global Holdings. Normally, meetings began with presentations about growth, expansion, and future success. This time, Ethan asked a simple question. What did we miss? The room became quiet. His advisors looked through their documents again. They reviewed the same reports they had studied many times before. At first, they believed there was nothing unusual. But Ethan continued asking questions. He wanted to know why certain projections depended on specific assumptions. He wanted to understand why some numbers appeared stronger than the supporting details behind them. The more they examined the information, the more they realized Olivia's concern was not random. She had identified a pattern that deserved attention. The issue was not that the entire agreement was wrong. The issue was that important risks had not been given enough consideration. Ethan felt a mixture of frustration and respect. Frustration because he wondered how his experienced team had overlooked something so important. Respect because Olivia had recognized the problem without having access to the same resources. Meanwhile, Victor Reynolds continued pushing for the agreement to move forward. He reminded Ethan about the potential benefits and the pressure created by competitors watching the situation. He argued that every major business decision involved uncertainty. His words made sense on the surface, but Ethan had started seeing the situation differently. He understood that confidence could be valuable, but confidence without careful examination could become dangerous. Later that week, Ethan visited Sterling Grand Hotel again. This time, he did not arrive as a powerful executive expecting service. He arrived as someone searching for answers. He found Olivia during her shift, preparing a table before the evening guests arrived. She looked surprised when she saw him. "I wanted to thank you," Ethan said. Olivia smiled politely, but remained humble. "I only mentioned something I noticed," she replied. Ethan looked at her carefully. Most people would have stayed silent. Olivia paused for a moment. "Sometimes staying silent is easier," she said. "But if you believe something could affect other people, you have to decide whether comfort is more important than doing the right thing." Those words affected Ethan more than she realized. He had spent his entire career making decisions based on numbers, strategies, and market predictions. But Olivia reminded him that leadership was also about responsibility. The next few days brought more reviews, more discussions, and more questions. The company began a deeper examination of the agreement. The confident excitement surrounding the expansion was replaced by careful analysis. For Ethan, the lesson was becoming clear. The greatest risk was not always hidden inside the numbers. Sometimes it was hidden inside the assumption that the people around you had already seen everything, and the person he almost ignored had been the only one willing to look again. The deeper review of the expansion agreement changed the atmosphere inside Caldwell Global Holdings. What began as a confident step toward another major achievement had become a careful examination of every decision, every assumption, and every detail. For Ethan Caldwell, the experience was unlike anything he had faced before. He had built his reputation by moving quickly and trusting his instincts. But this time, his instincts told him something different. Slow down. Look closer. Listen. The financial team continued analyzing the agreement, and their findings confirmed that Olivia Parker's concern had revealed something important. The problem was not an obvious mistake that anyone could easily identify. It was a collection of small details that created a much larger risk. Several projections depended on expectations that were more optimistic than the available information supported. Certain future estimates required conditions that were not guaranteed. None of these details alone seemed significant. Together, they created a picture that needed more attention. Ethan sat in his office reviewing the updated information. The Manhattan skyline stretched beyond the glass windows, a view that once represented unlimited success. But now, he was thinking about something different. He was thinking about how close he had come to making a decision without asking the right questions. He thought about Olivia standing quietly in the restaurant, holding a tray while a room full of executives ignored her warning. She had not had access to private meetings. She had not received the same information as the experts. Yet she had noticed something because she was willing to look carefully. Ethan realized that the greatest difference between Olivia and everyone else was not knowledge. It was attention. Meanwhile, Olivia continued working at Sterling Grand Hotel as if nothing had changed. She did not expect recognition. She did not expect a new opportunity. She simply continued doing her job with the same professionalism she had always shown. Her coworkers knew her as someone dependable and thoughtful. They knew she paid attention to details. But they did not know that her ability to analyze information had nearly prevented a major business mistake. When Ethan invited her to meet again, Olivia arrived expecting another conversation about the warning. Instead, he asked about her background. He wanted to understand how she developed the ability to notice what others missed. Olivia explained that she had studied business analytics before life changed her plans. She told him that she never stopped learning, even when she had to take a different path. Ethan listened carefully. For years, he had searched for talent through traditional methods. Resumes, recommendations, professional networks. But Olivia reminded him that talent could exist outside those systems. "You did not save us because you had a title," Ethan said. "You helped because you paid attention." Olivia simply nodded. She did not see herself as extraordinary. She believed anyone who noticed something important had a responsibility to speak. That answer stayed with Ethan. It showed him that true ability was often connected to character. The review of the agreement continued, and Caldwell Global Holdings avoided a decision that could have created serious challenges for the company. But for Ethan, the biggest discovery was not about the business deal. It was about the people he had overlooked. He had spent years building an empire by searching for the best minds in the industry. Yet the person who helped protect that empire was someone he never expected to hear from. And that realization would change the way he led forever. The decision to slow down the expansion plan created a reaction throughout the business world. Investors wanted explanations. Industry experts questioned why Ethan Caldwell had chosen to pause an opportunity that many believed was too valuable to ignore. For a man known for making confident decisions, this moment appeared unusual. But Ethan understood something that others did not. Protecting an empire was not only about making bold moves. Sometimes it was about having the courage to stop and examine what everyone else had accepted. Inside Caldwell Global Holdings, the review continued. The financial team discovered more details that required attention. The concerns were not based on rumors or assumptions. They were based on information that had been overlooked because everyone was focused on the potential success of the agreement. Ethan realized that the problem was not a lack of intelligence inside his company. His team was talented. His advisors were experienced. The problem was that everyone had been looking at the opportunity from the same direction. They saw growth. They saw potential. They saw success. Olivia Parker had seen something different. She saw the questions hidden between the numbers. That realization changed the way Ethan approached leadership. For years, he believed the best decisions came from gathering the smartest people and giving them the most information. But now he understood that another element mattered just as much. Perspective. A few weeks later, Ethan invited Olivia to Caldwell Global Holdings headquarters. When she entered the building, she noticed the difference immediately. The place represented everything she had once believed was far away from her world. Employees moved quickly through the modern offices. Executives discussed major projects. Screens displayed information about markets and investments. This was the environment where decisions affecting thousands of people were made. But this time, Olivia was not walking through as a visitor or an employee serving guests. She was there because Ethan wanted her perspective. He introduced her to members of his leadership team and explained the role she had played in preventing a rushed decision. Some people were surprised. They looked at Olivia and saw her previous job before they saw her ability. Ethan noticed those reactions because he once had the same perspective. He understood how easy it was to judge someone based on their position. The person who sees the problem is not always the person assigned to look for it, Ethan told his team. Those words represented the change happening inside him. He was no longer only searching for expertise that matched traditional expectations. He was searching for insight wherever it existed. Olivia did not suddenly become someone different because she entered a corporate office. She remained thoughtful, careful, and humble. She asked questions. She listened. She studied information before forming opinions. Those qualities were exactly what made her valuable. Over time, more employees began sharing their ideas. People who had once stayed quiet started participating in conversations. Ethan encouraged his teams to challenge assumptions respectfully and examine details carefully. The culture of the company began changing because one person had shown him the importance of listening. Looking back, Ethan understood that the warning Olivia gave him was not just about a business agreement. It was about a much larger lesson. An empire does not survive because one person has all the answers. It survives because the right people are willing to speak and the right leaders are willing to listen. The transformation inside Caldwell Global Holdings did not happen overnight. It was not created by one meeting or one announcement. It happened through small decisions that changed the way people viewed each other. For Ethan Caldwell, the biggest lesson was not about the agreement that almost moved forward. It was about understanding how many valuable voices could remain unheard when people only looked for talent in familiar places. After years of leading one of the most successful companies in the industry, Ethan began changing the way important conversations happened. He encouraged employees from different departments to share their observations. He asked people at every level to speak when they noticed something unusual. At first, some employees were surprised. They were used to a company culture where ideas usually traveled from the top down. But Ethan wanted to create something different. He wanted a place where information could move in every direction. Olivia Parker became an example of that change. She never asked to become the center of attention. She never wanted people to remember her because she had once been a waitress who warned a billionaire CEO. She wanted people to remember the importance of paying attention. When Ethan offered her an opportunity at Caldwell Global Holdings, he made one thing clear. It was not a reward for helping him. It was recognition of her ability. Olivia accepted the opportunity carefully. She knew entering a corporate environment would bring new challenges. She understood that some people would question whether she belonged there. After all, she had spent years being seen through the simple label of a waitress. But Olivia also knew something important. A person's past does not limit their future when they continue developing their abilities. Her first months inside Caldwell Global Holdings were challenging but meaningful. She studied company operations, worked with experienced analysts, and continued doing what she had always done. She paid attention. She asked thoughtful questions. She searched for connections that others might overlook. Slowly, the people around her began to see what Ethan had already discovered. Olivia was not valuable because of one moment at a restaurant. She was valuable because of years of discipline, curiosity, and dedication. Ethan watched the company change as more people became willing to share their perspectives. Employees who once remained silent began offering ideas. Teams started examining problems from different angles. The company became stronger because it was no longer relying only on the voices that were easiest to hear. One afternoon, Ethan walked through the office and noticed something that would have been impossible months earlier. A junior employee was presenting an idea to a group of senior leaders. Everyone was listening. Nobody was dismissing the opinion because of the person's position. Ethan smiled because he understood the meaning behind that moment. The change was bigger than business. It was about creating an environment where people were valued for what they could contribute. Olivia had not changed because she entered a powerful company. The company had changed because someone finally recognized her value. Ethan had spent years building an empire by finding opportunities. But Olivia taught him that sometimes the greatest opportunity is not a new market or a new investment. Sometimes it is recognizing the potential that has been standing quietly in front of you all along. Years after the night when Olivia Parker's warning changed the direction of Caldwell Global Holdings, Ethan Caldwell still remembered the moment that changed his understanding of leadership. It was not the meeting with investors. It was not the business decisions that followed. It was the quiet voice of someone standing outside the circle of power who had the courage to speak when everyone else remained silent. For Ethan, that lesson became more valuable than any financial success he had achieved. The company continued to grow, but the way he measured success was different. He no longer believed that the strongest organizations were built only by the people at the top. He believed they were built by people throughout the entire company who were willing to notice problems, share ideas, and care about the outcome. Olivia continued developing her career inside Caldwell Global Holdings. She never forgot where she came from. She still remembered the days when she wore a black apron at Sterling Grand Hotel and moved through rooms where people rarely noticed her. She remembered what it felt like to have knowledge that others did not expect from her. But she also remembered the importance of staying humble. Her journey was never about proving that she was better than anyone else. It was about showing that ability can exist anywhere. Ethan often reflected on how close he came to ignoring the one person who saw the situation clearly. He thought about all the experts, reports, and meetings that surrounded the decision. He thought about how easily people can overlook valuable information when they only pay attention to familiar voices. That realization changed him as a leader. He began asking a different question in every important meeting. Not only, who has the most experience, but also, who sees something that others might have missed? That question transformed the culture of Caldwell Global Holdings. Employees became more confident sharing their perspectives. Teams became more open to different ideas. People understood that their value was not determined only by their job title or their position inside the company. The lesson Olivia brought into Ethan's world became part of the company's identity. A few years later, when Ethan spoke to new employees joining Caldwell Global Holdings, he often shared a story about the importance of listening. He never focused on the size of the business decision or the reputation of the people involved. Instead, he focused on a simple moment when someone chose to speak because it was the right thing to do. The most important person in the room is not always the person with the highest title, he would say. Sometimes it is the person who notices what everyone else has missed. Olivia's story became a reminder that opportunity does not always arrive in the form people expect. Sometimes it arrives through a person who has been overlooked. Sometimes it comes from a voice that others have ignored. And sometimes, the person who helps protect an empire is not the person who owns it. They are the person who has the courage, intelligence, and integrity to see the truth before anyone else. Ethan Caldwell built a successful company, but Olivia Parker taught him something success alone could never teach. A true leader does not just create a place where people follow. A true leader creates a place where people feel valued enough to speak. Because one quiet voice, when it carries the truth, can change everything.